Three. We are on. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Will's webinar this evening, October's webinar, Will's webinar. And tonight we are joined with the one, the only Brandon Block. Woo, 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 woo. Good evening, Brandon. How you doing?
Very good, mate. Nice to see you. Thanks
for
having your wonderful show.
It's a pleasure to have you here. It really, really is. So for those of you that haven't joined us on Will's webinar before, just very quickly. So we've got the pleasure of deep diving into finding out about Brandon, what he's been doing, and most importantly, what he's now doing in the personal development space and how he's having a significant impact on people, which I'm really looking forward to finding more about. However, this is interactive and we want you guys to be able to interact with us. And the way that we do that is by utilizing, I'm just going to bring it up so you guys can see it, is by utilizing a little bit of Facebook. So the issue with using the chat box, if you ask the questions in the chat box, is when the webinar closes, all of the questions go and all of the answers go and everything else. So what we want to do is utilize Facebook, and we do that via our community. So what I will do very quickly is just post a link to our Facebook community in the chat box. So if you haven't joined the group, I recommend you join it. And then the image of me and Brandon is the official thread. So any questions you've got, I'm going to be monitoring that on a screen here. So as and when those questions come through, then we can ask them, or you can ask them to myself and Brandon, and we can get them answered for you before the end of the webinar. We can't promise to answer them all, but we'll do our best to get stuck into them all. So I'm just going to bring that down so we've got a little bit more space to see. There we go. So then, Brandon, so obviously for most people will know you as a DJ and a very, very well-known DJ. I had the pleasure of being with you on Saturday night, with you doing your thing once again, and you still DJ now, don't you? So that's very
every weekend, touch wood. So yeah, very lucky and very grateful to be able to do that, sir, to be honest with you. It's like 35 years now. I know it doesn't sound a lot, well, actually, no, it doesn't sound a long time. And I suppose as someone who's got this kind of beard, to be out there still doing it is, you know, a lucky thing to do. You know, I love the music, so, which is lucky, really. So, yeah, no, we've been through, it's tried and tested, I suppose. We've been through a lot of years of all that stuff going on, and to be still part of the scene, mate, is brilliant. So yeah, good.
So 35 years doing what you love, which is obviously playing music. So for people that maybe have heard your name, or people that maybe haven't heard your name but they are regulars at coming on to Will's webinar and hearing the insights that they get from the guests that we have on the show, do you want to just give people a little bit of a backstory of how you got into music, obviously as a passion of yours, and then how you sort of went on to succeed in it?
Right, so basically, okay, so in a nutshell, the story starts. I like anyone in the 80s. I don't know if anyone's in the 80s who were born in the 80s, probably not. You're a bit younger than me if you're watching this incredible entrepreneur here. So usual in the pub every night with my mates, buying import records every week, soul, funk, hip hop, usual stuff. And one weekend, the pub, the owner said, look, chaps, the geezer who usually DJs ain't turned up. Can you go and get your records? So we went home, bought our milk crates back with all the records in. We played at the decks, and the decks had at the time what these thing called garage, and they like belt driven, which means they go to speed up to speed. So we played on them, and there's no mixing involved. It was all about, you know, trying to match the beats up. Anyway, so we had a great night, and the governor said, right, so you may as well take over and do this every week. So we did. It became like the local haunt for everyone to go to. Aaron, I remember the days of Alex P. Nice one, mate. So we ended up doing like the local pubs, and then all the pub group said we want them to come and do the other pubs in our group around London. So we ended up buying a British Telecom yellow comma van, which was like an old Transit. No, a small a little works van. I went and got my personal account at Tandy Hi-Fi's, and we loaded up with the gear and the decks and the speakers, the amps and everything. And we went around doing these pubs and clubs for a period of time. I got into, we both actually were going to clubs and like all dayers in London, soul all dayers and funk stuff. We were listening to Greg Edwards on Soul Spectrum and the Lyceum, lots of that old scene. And as things progressed, we slowly moved into, all of a sudden there's a downside to every story, and I suppose you want me to talk about it, and I don't mind if you want to lead in, or I can carry on from now. I'll let you ask, actually. I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll just say, so we were doing the London clubs, and we were doing all the soul and funk stuff. And then a couple of my mates said, you've got to come to the warehouse parties. And we went, look, I knew about house music because it was something from America anyway. And I loved the sound because it was what I was into anyway. It wasn't until we went to the warehouse parties that we saw the entirety of it all open up into what we know now as, or what some of us know now as Karen. Lovely, yes, I'm not alone. So we see what the music scene opened up into, and moving on from that, that's where it brings us here. Really, I think you should maybe open up whatever you want to talk about then. I mean, obviously there was a downside for me, which we can talk about. So,
okay, so you started off literally, like you say, basically a DJ didn't turn up one night. You get thrown in the deep end. You must have been quite good. So then you've gone round and people are actually, yeah, you're pretty good. You know your music. So you go around, you're doing bigger events. And I'm guessing you go around and you start doing internationally. And then when did things start to turn for you then?
Right. So you mean turn bad or yes? Okay. So I mean,
turn bad or turn good, however you whatever.
Look, I suppose the actual transition, there was no real transition because along with the club scene came recreational, habits basically, and it was all part of one thing at a time. But then it changed. I mean, transition from pub to club was sort of about 86, 7. I was about 17, 18. I suppose. And then we played, I used to go to the clubs in the West End, and I mean, I know all the DJs there now, and we were, mates. At the time, I was a little whippersnapper who would just be turning up and giving it the big one. And so from then, and then when we found sort of, acid house, let's say, and, my mates going, come to the warehouse parties, and I was very not into that at the time. I just liked my music, and I always loved my music. I was very passionate about my music, which is why I was very forceful about letting people to make me to play. So anyway, but Carl, who runs the Yes Group, this is the real, not weird, but the synergy of this stuff, right? So obviously there was drugs involved, right? Back then, we all know about that stuff. So for me, it was something I wasn't particularly keen on, but I ended up going down a road, which I'll tell you more about as we get on in this. Anyway, so this is what's happened more recently. At the time of the acid house explosion, or Ibiza and the underground clubs which were playing all this wicked music, Carl was running nights, right?
Carl Pearsall, right?
Yes, right. So Carl was running nights, and I was driving him mad, saying, "Let me DJ, let me DJ, let me DJ." And he said, "Okay, I'll let you DJ." So this was in Ealing, and Carl ran a night, and he said, "Right, that you can DJ." And I went and played, and I just drove him mad to play. And he did, and I became resident, and he opened another club up the road on which I became resident at. So I ended up working quite closely with Carl for a few years. And then obviously Carl went on his journey. But, I wasn't to know that. And, I went on my journey, and then my journey took me to various places all over the world, and, Ibiza especially, and I was very honoured. I still am to this day to be part of the Space Terrace, which myself and Alex P sort of championed and made into what it became. We were the first two DJs to be playing regularly on the island, and we were living there. So we actually played 5-6 nights a week in all the big clubs because there was no promoters at the time. So it was just like me and Alex and a load of nutters from, the world who were traveling Ibiza at the time, living there, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people, I don't know. But that was the core, who would go to one night at Pacha, one night at Space, one night at Amnesia, one night at Coup, one night at Esparadis, one night at, you know, Angels, wherever else was going on, it would be one night, and all the same people would turn up at these each night. Do you get me? And then myself and Alex was asked to do every single one of them, basically. So we ended up playing for every promoter. Every promoter who started to come, just most of them for England to start with, all knew me and Alex. So we said, can you do our night? Can you do our night? Can you do our night? So we said, yes, we do every night. I can't describe what an incredible experience that was, just to be part of that whole early days, and, you know, seeing the craziness and the hedonistic and the cultural, you know, just diversity of the whole island, and what, just seeing that thing develop and to the monster it is now. But, you know, that being part of that whole thing. So I'm very grateful again for that, and being, you know, having that as part of my legacy, I suppose, which is brilliant. So moving on from that, yes, you're right, Paul, mate. They were. What can you say? So moving on from that, you know, for me, my life took a turn, and, you know, Space was a real good platform, because like, we were running clubs in England as well. I was running clubs at Milk Bar with Lisa Loud, which was my night, called Foo Bar. I won't say what the F stands for, but you can imagine. And the rest of it is up beyond all recognition. So it does what it says on the tin. And it was a Sunday night, so it was the end of the weekend, and we was all pretty messed up by then. Anyway, so we were running clubs in London, and we were going to all the clubs that are opening up in London. Then obviously we'd go to Ibiza, staying there for the summer. It all took its toll on me in around 96, and I was sort of had to leave to come home because I was very ill. I was physically ill, as well as, you know, in entrenched behaviours I was involved with. But you know what, I came to an epiphany then, excuse me, that I wanted to live and not die like I was heading towards. And I stopped. I found help on my own, pretty much. Well, my dad helped a bit. Well, no, my dad helped. And I found help. I went to the clinic. I did a detox. I stayed there for 3 weeks, and I came out, and then life hits you, like in the most incredible fashion, because you're just not involved in the real world when you live back in those days. You know, it was all just so mad and wild and free and just fast paced and everything else. And then, so that was 96. It was a long time ago now. It was all quite surreal. Yes, you're right, Jill. It was an incredible thing. She's so right. It's just, you know, when you think about it now, I mean, I get quite passionate about it, because you know what? I think you hear about music changing, you know, like, say you was involved in a scene. You was in a scene, or as a punk, or as a skinhead, or a rude boy, or a reggae. I was into, you know, whatever it was. It was all like a pure 80s pop, or, you know, a goth or whatever. The scene that we're in and still in is now 30 years on, and it's not a movement well, it's a movement. It's not a scene. It's a change, a whole cultural change, right? So it's just created this whole world of open-mindedness for music, because you've got dance people, dance mixes of, you know, roots and races and roots and punks. Yeah, exactly. It's like that. So I'm just going to get to that. It's like opening people's minds to listen to just music, because, you know, all types of genres of music write about lots of similar things. A lot of it's about love, and if you listen to the words of lots of songs, in the end, there are lots of them about love, right? So draw on people's passions. So this scene opened the world and doors to people musically. It's incredible, and it's not changed. It's actually changed the face of music forever. Because, you know, artists, look at people like us and what we do now. How many people come from that? The people, I can't tell you the bit. Look, the younger people who go to personal development webinars, seminars, whatever, are looking to better themselves, because they're now aware of what's going on in the world and what's available to them, right? How they, because obviously the thing about mental health, and this is where it sort of comes like, we are in a world of such diverse change and such available information, but, you know, to this fact that it's overwhelming and actually, you know, saturated, that we're getting caught up in these places of how do we succeed? How do we compare ourselves? Because we often, you go on social media, you're comparing yourself all day long. And you know, a lot of this stuff that looks wow and fantastic to reach isn't attainable. You can't get to it. And all you do is end up saying, all you do is end up beating yourself up and saying, I'm not good enough to get there. And what do I do? And then you get depressed, and then you start, you know, on this downward spiral. And then you see, the more you watch, the more you see, the more you hear, the more you feel bad about yourself. So you have a lot to contend with nowadays. You know, you've got to take yourself into different mindsets to be able to say, right. I mean, I know I've gone a bit quick on with this, but it just led me to that. But so the thing about the music thing, opening the world of doors for people was incredible back in the day. And you know, the culture we created and the community we created was worldwide. Yeah, everyone had a common bond, the music again, but the world had it. Not just people like pop stars and, you know, people go to concerts. It was the whole world of people. So clubs became the communities, didn't they? So yeah, what an incredible thing to be part of. Just that in itself, brilliant.
And that in itself is
yeah, you get a bit of an echo as well. I think you've gone. Sorry.
That for me is what makes this whole journey so powerful, because you've obviously gone to those heights, you've experienced what you've experienced, you've had an impact on people, and this is what I really love. So I'm obsessed with learning about people, right? So a lot of people say, there's a great quote, and I always forget the guy's name. It's gone. But they always say, rather than look up to people, look into people.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I look up to him. I look up to him. Don't look up to them. Look into them, and finding out what is it that makes them tick. And what I find, which I think is really interesting about what we do in the personal development space versus what you do when you're a DJ, let's say, is you're still providing a feeling for people.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's ultimately what I'm doing. Whenever I'm working with someone on facilitate, I'm taking them from feeling one way to feeling another. That's ultimately, when you break it down to its rawest form, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now, in order to create that facilitation is very, very different. But what you were doing back then was very much the same. You were creating a feeling for people, and you did it on a mass scale. Then obviously you come up against your own hurdles, challenges, whatever label you want to use them. But you had the tenacity, and like you said, with some help from your dad, to turn around and go, actually, this is a habit, or these are habits that I want to break, I want to change, and I want to be able to look at this in a different light. So was that sort of the start of your, what would you say, the start of your personal development journey?
Well, look, with the awareness I have now, yes. I mean, it didn't occur to me at the time, because I had no idea about it. You know, 22 years ago, whenever it was 22 years ago, we none of us, I was talking to, actually funny, I did a little interview with a young lady from Mixmag today, right? About the impact of mental health on DJs, on people in the music business, right? And she was saying that one of the woman, one of the psychologists who was involved with her story was someone who specialised in the music industry. And she said that a lot of the reasons that, or one of the main concerns, let's say, which arose when people came to see her, was that they were fearful of being, what's the word she used? Oh, right, you can't remember. I'll explain it. They were fearful of being sort of left to the side. What's the word? Not rejected.
Rejected.
Say again?
Rejected.
Not rejected as such, but, you know, not being able to continue on their high level, and just being left in the lay-by, let's say. Not being overlooked. Yeah, overlooked. Great word. Thanks, Jill. Not marginalised. No, overlooked is good. They were fearful of being overlooked. Because don't forget, you're riding high on this whole thing, being a DJ, and then all of a sudden, there's lots of other DJs, and there's lots of other people who are on the internet who are having, and because there's so much there to be competitive. Let's say, as I said, competing, isn't it? Comparisons. It's about, and because it's in your face all the time, you are constantly giving yourself, constantly putting yourself under stress to achieve this stuff, which maybe is not doable. Maybe it's just something that you just have to accept, that I'll do what I can and learn to be happy with it and learn to accept that this is the way it is for you. But this is why people nowadays are getting so caught up in this, because it's not acceptable to them, because, like, all the filters, all that, it looks, wow, look, wonderful, it all looks, and it's actually, when you go behind, it's not. It just looks good. And that's why everyone's thinking, I've got to look like that, I've got to look like that, I've got to be like that, I've got to have that. It's never ending. It's going to be like, when do you ever stop? You ever let your mind calm down and let it just, all this stuff go? So, it's very powerful. And the thing about this is, we've got to use this to make it good for people. So it's not going to be impacting on them. I was talking about the mental health and DJs, wasn't I? Sorry, about being overlooked. So yeah, that was one of the main problems about she was mentioning that they're concerned about. I mean, how bad's that?
So they're obviously concerned about being overlooked, so they're doing what they can. So for people that right now, obviously the topic is think again, and we're going to touch on thinking errors in due course. But for people that right now find themselves comparing to other people, and I think we can be honest, if we're honest with ourselves, we've all done it. And I've learned my own methodology, which I'll touch on in a minute, but I'm curious to hear yours. If someone right now is listening to this webinar and there's someone that finds themselves comparing a lot, and then they're getting the symptoms of that, the negative symptoms as a result of doing that, what's your advice to them?
Well, look, I mean, the thing that's become apparent to me, or that I've realized is probably most important, look, is awareness, right? Awareness. Be aware of your thinking. Be aware of how you're behaving. Because look, what happens is you have to reprogram your mind. When you've been to, where we are now, right, in this era of, technology. I can't describe it any other way, because we are constantly bombarded with technology, right? And we live our lives by technology, right? Pretty much. First thing you do in the morning. What's the first thing anyone does in the morning?
Yeah, they're checking their phones.
Right, there you go. Number one. No, so this buys into a theory of mine about, addiction being an inherent illness. I don't believe that. I believe it's created by trauma, by being given something which changes the way you feel really quickly, which, being human beings, you think, right, that works. Your mind says, right, that'll do that, because I know it works really quickly. So you just take that, whatever it may be. But what's happening is now that people, let's say, who are normal, supposedly, have now been created into these people who can't do without a mobile phone, because that releases dopamine, and it releases dopamine quick. And without them realizing, you pick your phone up first thing in the morning, you're waiting for that hit of whatever it is.
Yeah, you're waiting for that ping, that Facebook notification, or that text message, or whatever it is.
Exactly. So Karen just said she meditates before looking up. That's exactly right. I would personally meditate, do everything else you get done, and then pick your phone up and think. Because look, what I tend to do. Let's go back to what you were saying. I do digress a bit, Will. So my advice is, okay. So if you find yourself comparing, I think you've got to be aware that this is going on, because thinking errors are. Look, you think about the comparison stuff. So if it's about your friend getting, I know that the younger people would get more involved in this. I've noticed myself doing it, but I don't anymore. I've only got a few likes. I've only got, this one's unfriended me. This one, it's like, I didn't unfriend you because you're not my friend. I don't bloody know you. Or whatever. It's not like, it wasn't, don't take it personally. There's a great book called The Four Agreements, right?
Right book.
You know it. So you don't take things personally, because if you say, right, it's not about me, it's their stuff. It's actually something that, you have to look at what you're doing it for. What's the outcome for you, as opposed to what's the effect on me? You got to look at, so my advice is, what's the effect of this stuff? If you're aware of you comparing, and then you have a negative feeling, which will be, I'm not good enough, or I haven't got that, I need to do that, I must be able to achieve that, I must look like that, I must, all these musts and demands which you are telling yourself because you're seeing this stuff, it's not going to work. Because all you'll do is just compound all the negative stuff that you've been thinking about yourself because you look at this stuff every, you know, however often it is. And I mean, look at when was it? A few years ago when on Facebook, when that was it, you were allowed to put that status up. Now in a relationship, now not in a relationship. It's complicated. It's like people's lives were ruined by this stuff. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like it was public information, and it was like, really? And then all of a sudden you get everyone going, oh, you're right, you're right. And then before you know it, it's gone. You've got a big soap opera on your hands instead of just like, okay, tell your mate down the pub something's gone wrong, or wherever, or you know, in the gym, whatever it is. So my advice is be aware of how you're thinking, and be aware of the fact that the comparisons are not serving anyone, because they're not often not real. So you know that you've got to realise these filters, and you've got to realise these you know, these pictures you see. You know, what bunny ears, and you know,
it's just it's so true. I mean, my opinion on this whole side of things, and I have the pleasure of dealing with so many people from all different walks of life, from the celebrities to professional athletes to business owners to when I go into schools and do things, and what you see is common patterns.
Yeah, of course.
And for me, the common patterns is with comparison, thanks to these things and social media and the filtered photos and the photos where things aren't real, and where people are looking up to certain people, so then they create an association with their favourite music artist or football player who's driving a particular car. Right, well, I'm successful when I've got that car. I mean, I spent my teens and early 20s believing money equaled happiness. Like, literally went off and did whatever I could to earn as much money as I could, and doing all of those different things, and realised that it isn't to do with that. And my whole thing now is very much about the only person you should ever compare yourself to is the best version of you. So rather than comparing yourself to anyone else, just ask yourself, like I asked myself, what would the best version of me do in this situation? And when I'm talking about the best version of me, I'm talking about the version of me when I'm in like a peak performance state. What would I do? I would do this, right? Okay, I know I could be making a better decision right now. And as a result, I started doing that, not because then only I know my true capabilities to push myself in whichever way that might be, to then go and do something differently or give me a result that I want, rather than relying on somebody else's idealism is. And that's where so many of us get caught out, is we get caught up in these social idealisms that are serving us. So then we're not congruent.
No, it makes sense. I mean, look, and I think, you know, you have to be aware of what is the best version of you without being too demanding, because, you know, again, as you say, you have to keep it to you. You've got to make it personal. Whatever you're going to achieve, it's about, you know, because if you do, look, again, modeling's great. You know, modelling yourself on certain successful people is fantastic. But again, you have to find your unique you, because, you know, there's no point emulating someone, but to such a state that this is the thing, isn't it? The comparisons, isn't it? You start in it. Look at me, isn't it? You start.
You're an Essex guy here, right? The last person you need to be correcting your language.
So, yeah, I suppose that don't compare yourselves. Just be true to yourself. Whatever you are, you're all right. You're all yes, that's right. That's yes, it's Miguel Ruiz. You're right, and it's brilliant. Yeah, just be, and that's what I've learned. So, you know, I think you've got to accept yourself. You can only do what your best is. As long as you're doing what's good for you at that time, that'll do. You know, that'll be, you know, you can have aspirations, you can have your goals, you want success, but success, I think success, it comes from inside, because if you're not happy and you're not content with what you are or who you are, this, as I say, you know, as we know that often they say that money doesn't bring success, money doesn't bring happiness. How many people will be heard that are very rich, very fat, but not happy? Because they've strived to get to this place of, you know, that you know, they've strived to be this place because of comparisons. They've strived to be someone they're particularly not because it looks great and because you're told that this is the way you have to live. And all of a sudden, because you've got all this information, you go, oh, well, that's the way I've got to live, because everyone else seems to think that's the way you've got to live. So I think we've all lost a lot of the reality and a lost of our uniqueness in this world that we're in, you know. However, I'm not being negative. I'm just saying how it is, or how I see a lot of things. No, how I see with a lot of people I speak to. What I found is at this age, when you go to the events, Tony Robbins and UPW and all that sort of stuff, and stuff that we go to, the thing that you find is you get a common, you know, a commonality with people. You get congruency about the way they're all there in the same mindset, right? And they want to achieve things, which is great in their own way. And I think the fact that what we're doing is we're actually exploring the human potential, because this came to me today, right? And I was thinking, I've often thought about where I've just thought that this stuff just doesn't appear, right? You haven't had these people, all these wonderful people we watch on YouTube and Gaia and, you know, all that stuff, all of a sudden come up with these ideas. Because if you look at the philosophers and you look at the civilizations from thousands of years ago, without the technology, without the equipment, let's say, they had these epiphanies, they had these visions, they had this power of, because you know why? And I worked out today, they didn't have the distractions. All they had was their minds. So they wrote books, they wrote the stories that we read, they wrote these powerful, you know, things, and the powerful realizations and the powerful discoveries they made about the potential of the human mind and the human condition, and how we treat people, and how, you know, power is created, and how you know, how we listen to people who have authority. And I just thought, wow, this is where it comes from. You know, all these clever people back then, they had nothing better to do than sit there. Can you imagine sitting there with, as a human, knowing that we are, knowing Homo sapiens, what we are, with no, I say distractions like we have now, but more just, you know, focus on what's going on for us, and sitting in circles and talking to people who are of similar learning, right? You'd come up with this stuff, wouldn't you? You'd think, I've got these things going on in here, and there's got to be ways I can tap into this, or I've got something going on. It's incredible.
It is. It really is.
Absolutely incredible. I'm just so in awe of it at the moment. I'm frightened to read any further in the stuff I'm learning, because I'm just going, oh my God, I'm going to tap into this stuff, man. You're not going to be able to get to me. I'm going to be flying for some reason, you know, above a different level.
But I think what you've said there, right, and this is just one of my own opinions. I mean, so many people always tell me, and I would agree, that I'm quite blessed in that I found personal development at an early age and started implementing it at an early age, albeit when I first started doing it, it was for the wrong reasons. I believe that money equals happiness. So I did personal development because I realized the more personal development I did, the more money I made. I was like, this stuff brilliant, just make me more money. Right. And then I had a big realization when I was 23 that it wasn't anything to do with that. And it was also my dad. And there's a whole other story, which some people will know. But to be able to know, like you said, that most of the learnings, let's face it, like what I talk about, what you talk about, what most people talk about, this isn't stuff that we've just come up with. It's stuff that we've learned from someone. Now, the reason that we've learned that and we've got to that point is because we've hit a challenge in our life which has led us to find that or think differently about a particular situation. But the majority of it's out there, and it's being able to use it now for good and get to where we want to get to, which has led me to one of the questions that I've got for you. So you now have a business called Happy Days. You've got the banner behind you, if people haven't noticed it. What is your definition of happiness?
Well, look, I suppose... I had a period when, so let's say from 22, when I stopped doing all what I was doing, and 22 years ago, I went on my own journey of discovery, I like to call it, because I wasn't in any particular mode of, I don't like the word recovery as such, because I'm better. So, I mean, I got better from what I don't know what I was ill with, really. I had a behaviour cycle which I had to change, and I did, bad habits. So I went on this, I would call it a journey of discovery, which it was. I learned about myself, I learned about the emotions, I learned about, okay, I'll talk to you. Terry, I'll get back to you, I will do, mate, I'll let you know. So when you get into a world of real humanity and you get back from, and I was back from the mentalness I was suffering, and it took me a long time, don't get me wrong, it was really quite a tough time for a few years, but you discover a lot about the emotions and your spirituality and your how your head works and the behaviors you get into, and then the more you learn about the conditioning and why all of a sudden you think that these things are normal to do, and why you are just doing these behaviors or these certain routines because you've learned them. You're a learning machine. You're the most powerful learning machine we know, let's say. So we're also animals, so we're creatures of habit, which is normal. If you went, any other creature will know that after 6 months of hibernating, or they have to go and feed themselves, which is a habit. Not a habit to eating, but that cycle. Same as any daily routine which animals do, and they go and get food and they come back and they make habits. So they learn how to do that, and that's how that's how we all learn, So down the road a bit, and I was still discovering lots of stuff and lots of things, and the music scene changed because obviously technology got really massively involved. Quite unusual that you discovered your truth early. Yes, no, sorry, yeah, do you know what I was going to get to? I'm very grateful that an epiphany came to me, let's say, because I really nearly could have just gone where I was heading for anyway. But so I was getting back to the music thing, and then music sort of was getting saturated on the internet. It was very easy to make because obviously there's a lot of software which is really quite simple to use, and a lot of the younger people doing music, their brains are really switched on still. So they this technology groovy. It's like like the young kids with iPads. They're like, I've seen it. It's like, wow, man, this is how they learn. Anyway, so I got a bit disillusioned, but alongside that, I was also learning a lot about myself and the reasons that I did what I did. And I learned that I had a lot of upset when I was young, but not dramatic. And I'm not, claiming I'm a victim of any sort, but things in my life affected me in a certain way, right? So I get to like 2010, and then all of a sudden I got this urge to give back, to teach people who have problems with drug and alcohol to how that there are ways out. So I made my way into the drug and alcohol field and went to search for the vocal voluntary service, which turned out local to me, was run by an old friend of mine, right? So I really want to do some volunteer work.
Just very quickly, so I just want to make it clear for people that maybe don't know. So you got into DJing at 17?
16, 15.
16. You become like world renowned by the time you were 18, playing at the biggest clubs, world renowned, flying around the world in your sort of late teens, early 20s, and then by the time you're 21, you were like, that's it.
No. It wasn't that quick. I stopped when I was 29. I stopped. I went 10 odd years. I was from 18. I was 18, 19, 21, 22 going to clubs. 23, 24. Then Ibiza, 22, and then 6-7 years. And then a couple of years getting better. 3 or 4 years getting better. 29, I had to stop. That's when I made this decision to stop. So my 30s and my 40s are when I've done my learning.
Right, okay.
So for everyone, that's sort of way it worked. So anyways, get back to the, so I went to volunteer. I ended up doing that full time and working for a living, doing that for, 5 or 6, 7 years even. With some great outcomes and some, met some really cool people and helped some people along the way, which was more important. Then went to work for the NHS with a more in a very much deeper role, doing outreach, which means visiting people in their homes and also working with the most chaotic and entrenched behaviored people, let's say, at the time. That impacted on me in a way that was, because I have an empathy and I was taking a lot of it on board without realising. So I actually, got a bit disorganised and ended up having a burnout, which is just before I went into Celebrity Big Brother. So I wasn't in the best of minds when I went into that show. But anyway, look, you know what? It's actually this, it leads well into this. So I came out of Celebrity Big Brother. I was feeling very down. I was feeling very, didn't know what I was up to. Just basically, just on a real, when you get burnout, it's like, you know, you have a complete emotional, not breakdown, but you get there. So anyway, I happened on a Tony Robbins event with a guy called Chris Hill. If you know where Chris Hill?
Chris, very well, yeah, very, very well indeed.
So I went with Chris to UPW. I walked in the doors, and all of a sudden, I've got like people come up saying, blah, 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 and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, why is all these people I know from dance music in this seminar? And I'm like, okay, so, you know, I spent a lot of time with a few of my friends from back in the day, and we all sat in the same row and had a journey and experience. And I came out now and I thought to myself, this is what I needed. There was something missing in my life, and I knew I was working on what I was working on, but I couldn't put my finger on it. You know, so now I did. I realised I had to work on myself. That's what I had to do. I had to do more work on me, and I wasn't able to give any more out because I'd worn it all out. You know, I had to replenish some of me with some of this stuff available. So I did, and I went on this, you know, not crusade, that's a bit more a strong word, but, you know, I come out of UPW and I thought, I like this, I'm going to, and then then I'm in the gym and and Carl's in there, right?
Right, pistol, right, okay.
So I've talked to Carl, I went, I know what you do now. And he went, no, I went, no. He said, I've been doing this for 20, however long it is,
25th anniversary next month, isn't it?
25 years he's been doing it. Yeah, of course it is. So I was going, I can't believe. So and he said, well, yes, this is what I do. I went to see Tony Robbins many, many years ago. Blah, blah, blah. I had my journey and I've been on it, and, you know, I've got the S group come along. So I went to the S group. Then Carl, I asked Carl to coach me for a bit because I was, you know, I wanted to get into this thing. Little did I realise I'd done like 4 or 5 different training courses which entitles me to coach. You know, when you work with people, you're changing their lives. That's life coaching. That is at the bottom level. At the bottom level, that's the hardest level. Is life coaching is helping people change their lives from, you know, entrenched addiction to not. So you know, the trainings I did were really important in continuing the journey. And then Carl coached me for a good few months, and we did some really good work. I met Brian. Goal mapping, and I did a practitioner's course with Brian. I did my own goal maps. I achieved 8 of my goals in the first 7 or 8 months of the goal mapping. You know, I met you, I met Alan, I met a load of great people, friends, Chris and Chris Stockhill, Shaquille, who's opening his own group tonight, we know about. I mean, look, it's just incredible. And you know, we were discussing earlier, there's so much out there now. But the thing about it is we've got to be aware, because we've got to keep ourselves focused and grounded, because we'll get lost in this world of technology, I'm telling you. And if we're not, the thankful thing that we've got, the grateful thing, the thing I'm grateful about is we know, hopefully we know when we're doing too much or getting involved too much, because I sometimes think, getting them phone frenzies and my head goes funny and I think, oh, I've got to put that bloody thing down. I'm getting lost in it today. I don't need to be seeing all it. Do I need to be seeing what I'm looking at? You've got to ask yourself that. And do you really? I don't know. I mean, look, you can only learn so much. You just take the bits you need. That world's not going to change. You're not going to impact on that world when you're too confused and too caught up in the alpha radio waves of that thing to do anything to any good. And I think, you know, when you think this, I've got to do what's important for me. What is right for me?
Yeah, the self-love aspect.
Self-love.
I think I see with so many people. So the irony, right? I'm out of water right now, but a great way of explaining it is you can't pour from an empty jug. You know, as much as you want to give, and you said that one of the things that was really important, you was giving back, and you were giving back when you were working with the guys with the addiction and the alcoholism, and you were giving back and giving back and giving back. But working yourself is so important, having that grounding, having that stability, because otherwise, and I don't think people do it intentionally to take from you, but you've got to make sure that you're filling that jug. And this doesn't just go for people like us that work in the personal development space. Think of anyone. A prime example that I see this with happen with so many is mothers. Right? And I don't mean to be biased towards fathers, but mothers is a prime example. So many mums that I know just give and give and give and give from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, and they wonder why they're burnt out. They wonder why they're physically exhausted. They wonder why they're mentally exhausted. They wonder why they're emotionally exhausted. And it's because they're not taking time to focus on them and do what it is that they love. Yeah. And as much as you might say, well, I love giving, and that's great, it's important to be able to give for yourself as well. So that's so important. So important.
I mean, it's really strange. Not strange you said that, but you're talking about mothers. Myself and Neil did this in the local community where I live. It's where I actually worked for the NHS, which is a place called South Oxley. It's a very famous place. It was like one of the first post-war built, towns where they put a lot of people who were homeless in the war. Anyway, so I did a lot of the work there, and then we met one of the ladies called Jan Crooks, a friend of ours over there, who runs DSPL, which is I keep forgetting the name. Supplying for. I should kill me for the remembering. Anyway, it's about. I've got to get a name, man.
DSPL.
Supplying services locally. Anyway. Yes, but it's for supporting the local community with various services, support groups, etc. So we do a program for mothers who have children with ADHD and stuff, who obviously suffer under this. They come up against a lot of stumbling blocks in their education system and how they get the kids looked after and educated well enough. So that without realising that stuff impacts, as you said. And they don't know because they're mothers, and their instinct is to just look after everyone, especially the children. And the most important thing, paramount. So we went and we did some talks with Thinking Errors, and we did some talks about self-love and talking about not comparing and not taking things personally. And then if you can take yourself out of that, because you're often putting yourself under this pressure that, they take stuff personally. They do compare themselves. And, well, there, Karen, you'll know exactly. So that does impact. And, if it continues on a daily basis without realising, that's when you implode. So we just gave them some tools and said, look, if you use this and just think about it differently and don't necessarily buy into those thinking errors, and I told them what they were, you'll be able to manage it possibly better. It'll give you some help. And they loved it. I mean, the thing about it is, the next week went back, one of the ladies said, I used one of the tools you gave me last week and it worked. I wasn't so wound up. I just kept it, I kept it at a level where I was meant to manage it. So, it's just about being aware of how you think. What is that thinking helping you? Because, at the end of the day, a lot of it's based on fear because of your protectors going, right, I don't want this situation, so I'll just try and, what's the way to do it? I'll draw in. I'll retreat with the frightened, but you set yourself off in anxiety mode then. Release all the bad chemicals and then you're off in that, that place. So, that was just what you said about mothers and stuff. So, yeah, it's about watching how this stuff you think about impacts on you and how it impacts on your well-being, which is what we've learned now, especially in this world of personal, say, life journeys, personal developments, that power word, isn't it now? It's like, yay. Whereas when we live in the real world, it's about being happy. So you talk about happy days, wouldn't you? So I digress. See, I always come back. It often comes back.
I haven't forgotten. So I guess really the original question was like, how do you define happiness?
Right. So basically, myself and Neil, we were sitting here. I met Neil in the gym, and I was in a mode of sort of still in my cool journey of feeling really good about things and just thinking, what was it how was I before I got into this place? What was I like on a daily basis? And I was thinking I was often buying into an easy, like a normal, I wasn't getting out of bed going, yeah, let's tackle the world, because I don't think anyone does in the real world get that every day, right? So, but what I found was that I was often getting up and thinking, oh, I've got another day like that, another day like that, another day like that. And you just create that program. That's what happens. You do that every day, and then what happens is you just do it every day, right? Because you'll learn it, cycle, your body gets used to it. If you don't make the changes, you dip into that cycle, and then you do it. And that's what often people do in their lives, and they've been trained to do this. But what I realized was that I looked at myself and said, I'm in that place I don't want to be again. I don't want to be doing this every day. I don't want to be thinking the same, doing the same stuff. Because it's not going anywhere. I'm not achieving it. I'm not learning anything. I'm not meeting. I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be thinking the same stuff. So I met Neil, and we both sat in my man shed, and then we met Michelle, and we both sat there for like 3 or 4 days just talking about our stuff. Lots of tears, lots of awareness, lots of discovering things, and then all of a sudden we just said, look, if you think about the thinking errors that we often buy into every day, if you change those and you resonate at a different level for a week, let's say, or you change the thinking first thing in the morning, like Tony said, change your state, but it's all of change your state. You've got to make that a habit. But it's not as easy to do that. So if you just change one little thing each morning, which is you're usually doing, just change that, but wherever you're changing it, what happens is over a period of time, you get happier. And then you get happier. And then you often don't dip back into the old happiness, let's say, before you were happier. You don't go to that level. You just go back to the level of slightly less happy, but it's better than being unhappy. And then over the period of time, if you continue to do that, you will look at life differently and be able to achieve better things. Well, achieve a happiness or happier days. So what we do is on happy days, we share experiences. We share, a lot of people joined it and just share posts each day. And people just look at our affirmations and, because it's coming from a community place, people, it's not like just going on your app, because it's lonely when you get on your app, isn't it? You go an app for affirmations. It's quite insular, so like mobile phones can be, without the community aspect. If you were stuck on that all day long, mate, you'd become a robot in about 2 weeks and you'd be a Dalek. So, yeah, I suppose Happy Days was just something we bought and thought, you know what, would it be nice just to impart some really nice stuff daily, weekly, do some good Facebook Lives, which I started on my own, actually, just doing some, because I like talking, you could tell. And I met some really cool people, so I just thought that platform was really good. Obviously, it's been used a lot, but I started doing it. And so, yeah, we do the thing about this thing, Will, you meet some really incredible people who've done some incredible things with their lives, made some incredible changes, and it's not unachievable. If you make some certain fundamental changes in your thinking and your behaviour, even if you're not, it doesn't have to be world changing immediately. It can be little changes for you which make you feel better, and that's all it's about. It's about making you feel better, because we often go into that place of not feeling better on a daily basis, and that's life, unfortunately, because we're shown and what we learn. But yeah.
So a couple of things I just want to touch on. So coming back to Terry's question, what are your recommended books? So what would you say your top three, let's say your top 3 books are, or podcasts are, or audios that have inspired you along your journey?
Well, I suppose more recently I've sort of got into, look, I tell you what, some really good books. I mean, fun just to think about your thinking, Terry. And I will talk about a couple of thinking areas in a minute, Will, if you don't mind. But
yeah.
Oh, thanks, Karen. Yeah, wicked. So personally, for me, I found the book Letting Go was really good. The Art of Surrender. you just say the words, I'm letting go. Sorry, can't help that. You've got to realise what you're in control of, what you can't control, what you can partially control, right? So long as you can get that differential right, you'll know that, okay, I can do something about that. I can't do anything about that. I can definitely do something about that. If you know that, you can, pretty much choose that. So the art of letting go is really good. As I said, Joe Dispenza, I'm finding incredible at the moment. It's like mind-blowing for me. So if you want to have a look at Dr. Joe Dispenza look at his interview on the impact theory, which is a guy called Tom Bellew. He does what we do on Facebook, but on YouTube, interviews lots of very great people. And do you know what I really found helpful a long time ago was the chimp paradox. It's just easy to understand, and it explains. It's a bit like that Sapiens that I'm reading at the moment. Have you heard about that? Sapiens.
Yeah.
So I'm reading that at the moment, but chimp paradox just explains about your three parts of your mind which work either congruently or they don't. And if you can get them working together in unison, or not in unison, but just helping each other, your life will be a lot easier. You won't have the antagonistic things going on. So those three podcasts, who do I listen to? Audio, but I often listen to audiobooks as opposed to podcasts as such. But I think Simon Sinek is another great person to watch on YouTube. I really like his stuff. He's just a nice guy, but he's very clever. And, I think, those for the moment are the stuff that's, made me feel better about the daily thing. I mean, I do meditation in the morning now. So, and the evenings if I can stay awake.
We were talking a moment ago about how going to bed earlier is something I'm certainly I prefer to go to bed earlier these days. So.
Going to bed early is the new going out, mate.
Yeah, there's wildlife. So okay, cool. So Simon Sinek, Dr. Joe Dispenza,
The Art of Letting Go, Sight of Surrender,
the Chimp Paradox.
Chimp Paradox.
So there's a few for Terry.
Hey?
There's a few there for Terry. So thinking errors.
Yes, thinking errors. Okay, so look, I'm going to give you a few examples of thinking errors, which I've learned from working in the drug and alcohol field. These are like, literally, and you know what? It's all transferable. It's not unique. It's actually, you just think about this stuff and you'll think, if I do that, these things will affect me, right? If I think like this. So, firstly, well, I'm going to give you a few examples. I won't go through the whole lot, there's 12 of them, but I can, if you want, Will, send you like a PowerPoint, a PDF of something I wrote to do the course with the ladies in the local community, which gives you the thinking errors. If you want to share that with your people, but it's entirely up to you.
If you're happy to do that, then yeah, please.
A few thinking errors. Blaming, right? You start blaming things, blaming people. All you're doing is passing the buck. And what you're really doing is saying, I'm not good enough to do that, so I'm going to blame that. But what that's doing is your insides is saying that you're not good enough. Just accept that you can't do what you tried to do, and it's fine. You're allowed to fail. You're allowed to try again, something different. You're allowed to try something new. But failure is never a failure. Failure is a learning experience to say, right, I need to try something different. That way didn't work. Blame traps, terrible. Have you tried it? So, I don't know, let's say, for an example, I don't know, let's do the old car thing in the morning, in the traffic. Someone pulls out, blame, your fault. No one's taking any notice of you because they're just in their car. They don't care. You're sitting there blaming them for something which it could have been their fault. Maybe, who knows? It could have been your fault. But what you've got to say to yourself is, if I start getting wound up and blaming them, I'm going to feel bad. I'm going to get wound up. No one else is, right? Blaming. Justification. All right, okay, so I'm going to justify that by doing this and doing that, but the justification will go against what traditionally you decided not to do. So I'm not going to think about that, or I'm not going to do that thing anymore. And then you go, well, I've just done it. Oh, well, look, I've done it, so I'm just going to say, right, well, this time I did it because I deserved it. I allowed it. And justification, thinking error, because, again, it's going to affect you. If you've done something against what you didn't want to do, instead of justifying it, accept it and say, right, I changed the way I'm going to do it next time. Rationalising. Oh, okay, yeah, so I'll make that rational. Every irrational decision, you start to, and a thinking error this is because when you start to rationalise it into a way that's allowing it, you've made it right when it's wrong. That makes sense. I'm trying to do a rationalisation, which is okay. What's some rationalisation what's rational about this? Okay, so an analogy. I'm rationalising it. So my battery's going to run out, would you believe, in a minute? But okay, so rationalising. I'm going to play football. I'm not allowed to play football because I broke my leg twice, right? But yeah, I walked past the park. There's the lads. Everyone said, "Come and join me." Blah, blah, blah. I know the rationalising. Well, I love my football and I make it right, and I might be able to achieve something good with the new lads. Go play football and hurt my leg again. You rationalise. You make excuses. You make reasons that are okay to do what you need to do, and regardless of the consequences. Then once you rationalise, you've done what you didn't want to do. You feel bad.
Yeah.
There are inherent lots of these thinking errors. Those were a few rough examples, but if you think about, am I rationalising this? Am I justifying this? Am I blaming? Am I being grandiose, all or nothing, catastrophising, black and white thinking? These are all thinking errors. He always does that. She always does that. Really? That's all or nothing. That's like, well, no, all or nothing is, if I do that, I'm going to do all of it. You know? Or nothing. No, I can't. Unless I get it all right at once, I'm not doing it.
Taking it to an extreme, yeah.
Taking it to an extreme. I can't learn to swim. I'll give you an example. If I can't ride the bike perfectly straight away, I'm not going to bother. All or nothing. And what's wrong with learning? Because then what you've done is you've said, no, I'm not going to do that because I can't do it perfectly. So you've made yourself feel bad because you're not good enough to do it. And you've also said you've deprived yourself of trying something new. So you've got this double thing going on with it's going to affect you. Anyway, so there's a pattern of thinking errors. And if you're aware of your thinking like that, I often even ask myself now, if I'm, why am I getting wound up if I'm in a traffic jam? What am I getting wound up about here? Which thinking error am I using? And you'll find it'll come to you. It'll come to you, one of them, and you say, right, well, I have to change that. And what happens is, after a period of time, all those thinking errors, they don't manifest anymore. You just think.
You've created an awareness, haven't you?
You've also told your mind that you started these neural pathways. You've created a new thinking pathway, a neural pathway, right? So by thinking differently, and continue to think differently, you've now created that belief. You don't need to think like that again. So not only will you not do it, if you do find yourself doing it, your mind will say, well, we don't do that anymore. It will just change immediately. It's like how we program ourselves when we're kids. This is our paradigm beliefs that we're told, and that's what we believe until we change them. But we have the power to change them because we've got to be aware. Once you're aware, you can change everything.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. So look, we've taken up, we've already gone over the allotted time that I wanted to be able to spend with you. So I'm really, really grateful for you coming on and sharing your wisdom this evening, Brandon. If people want to find out more about your journey and see more about Happy Days, how can they find you?
Say again?
So I was reading that.
Jill, yeah. Guilty. Well, look, Jill, the thing about it is, we're not guilty. We just don't know we're doing it until we realise that that's what we're doing. Once you realise that those are your, default thinking patterns, but no fault of your own, Thanks, Lee. No fault of your own, just because you're just used to doing it, and that's what we do. We're oh, wicked, nice one, Tel. But Jill, so yeah, it's just about, you know, we're just so used to doing it. We've been programmed to do it, and we've done it because we weren't aware that it was any other way to do it. We just assumed that that's what we should be doing. That's the way we need to think, and that's what we've been taught to think. We don't realise that it affects us. And it's not until we're aware that it does affect us that we change the way of thinking. It works. Trust me. Well, you don't know. We've had some examples. Next time you think a certain way, you think, how's that thinking affecting me? What's the emotion I'm getting here? Or is the emotion stuck? Because it can change either way. Just be aware of what it goes. If you're feeling bad, there's got to be a reason for it. If it's rational, then fair enough. But is there any rational reason why you should feel bad? Guilt? No. Just use it all, but use it. And I hope everyone got something, really.
Well, from
appreciate comment. Lovely. Thank you very much for comments, everyone. I hope it's all. I hope you all get something from that. And yes, it's all doable. Trust me.
So what I'll do, if it's okay, you can send us the PDF of the thinking errors. Then for everyone that's still online now, guys, make sure you join the group. I'll put the link in the group, and then we'll post it into the groups, and people have access to it, and they can see the PDF. If people want to find you and they want to follow Happy Days and what you're doing, what's the best way they can connect with you? And
they can follow Happy Days Online Coach on Facebook. There's a group we're building. It's going to be not going to be a secret group. It's a secret group at the moment because I want everyone to be part of it when it's ready to go, and I want to do some webinars in it, and I want an interactive group where we can do some sharing and share the thinking areas and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, Facebook, Online Happy Days, on my personal page, Brandon Block Works or Brandon Block. Send me a message and I'll get back to you. Just don't be too hard on yourselves, everyone. Just be good to you. Happy Days are here again. Hey! Just be aware of what you're doing, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, and if it's not making you feel good, change it. However it means, learn how to change it. Think differently. The power of positive thinking. I know it's very cliche and it's very, I find it hard to. No one can do it every day. Trust me, you're a human, so you're entitled to feel the bad stuff as well as the good stuff because it's experiential. So feel the not so good stuff, feel the great stuff, but be aware if you're doing it. And in time, you'll just be normal, feeling all right with everything. Happy.
Love it. You'd be happy. Happy days. Okay, fantastic. Well, Brandon, thank you again. And truly, I know there's been so many golden nuggets. There's so much that people can take from this. So thank you very much for your time. And hopefully we can have you come, and when we've got Happy Days, everything running, it would be great to come and have you come and speak at the Elite Network and share your wisdom live in person with people as well, which I'm sure we can sort at some point as well.
Definitely, mate. Wicked. Thanks for having me, Will. I've really enjoyed it. And thanks everyone for tuning in and listening. And thank you very much for the comments. They're all lovely. I'll come to Sheffield, don't worry. I've been up there a long time ago, actually. Love to be. The lead mill. Ooh, those are the days. Anyway, look. You remember. I can't thank you all enough, and I really appreciate the comments. It's lovely. And Happy Days, everyone. Just be kind to yourselves. Don't drive yourself mad. Easier said than done.
Well, hey, look, it's all learning, right? It's all learning. So have a lovely evening, and we'll speak very soon.
Wicked.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight. Until next time, make it happen.
We off on?
We will be in a minute. There we go.